Shotgun with Charlie.
Riding shotgun refers to the practice of sitting next to the driver in a moving vehicle. The term riding shotgun came around after the time of the stagecoach, when somebody used to sit next to the driver holding a shotgun, in case they ran into bandits. My name is Charlie Cook, and I drive a lot. I like to talk to people while I'm driving, so I interview people in my car while I'm driving. Welcome to Riding Shotgun with Charlie. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this episode of Riding Shotgun with Charlie. We are back in Detroit, Rock City. And we are with Marcus Weldon one more time. Marcus, it's great to see you again, man. Thanks for coming along with us.
I couldn't wait to get back on the show.
Oh, man, it's been great. I love coming to Detroit. So last time we were together, we spent a lot of time talking about what, I don't want to say what made you famous, but let's face it.
Yeah.
That's how you got to be known, and that's how people became aware of you.
Right.
And since then, you've done some other stuff. You've got a book that's coming out soon that talks about your experience, and you guys can check out the previous episode of Riding Shotgun with Charlie with Marcus on it. But you've got some other stuff that's going on too.
Right here. Yeah. Well, it was funny because during this whole process, I was picking up all kind of different books, and one book I picked up was the autobiography of Malcolm X. And this was a book that everybody was always say, you need to read this book. And I said, okay. One of the greatest autobiographies I've ever read in my life. I mean, the transitions in this man's life. And he's such a controversial figure in history. And I think a lot of it is being misunderstood. My grandfather, a little backstory on this, my grandfather was actually a Muslim. And he converted to Christianity when he was in his early 30s. But before then, everybody know they used to call Malcolm X Detroit Red. He was here in Detroit, and that was his name, Detroit Red.
He didn't have red hair, did he?
He did have a little reddish tint to his hair.
All the pictures were black and white.
Yeah, all the pictures were black and white. But what really drew me to this book was the fact that not to mention my grandfather was really fascinated with Malcolm X, but it was the fact that his transition from prison to following the beliefs of Elijah Muhammad, and then to another transition when he went to Mecca and became like this total well-rounded person that wanted to unite people, all people. And it was like there were so many stages of his life, but so many times people take the small little piece and they focus on it. They're like, this is the part we're going to focus on, and we're going to just talk about the fact that Malcolm, he said some things that even he admitted that he was wrong on, and
right.
I think a lot of times people need to look at the entire story. And I did a thing on my Facebook. I said, if you look at President Andrew Jackson, you could focus on the fact that Andrew Jackson, who was on the $20 bill, who a lot of people feel is one of the greatest presidents to ever lived, or with this nation.
Yeah.
And he did some things a lot of people in the African American community and the Indian community didn't particularly like too much.
Right.
But he also spoke against the private owned bank system and the fact that the inflation was going to have America enslaved, and we are enslaved to debt. And he spoke against that, and that's some principles I agree with. So what I'm basically saying is, let's look at the entire context, look at the entire picture, and quit just taking snapshots of his life. And so what I did was I pretty much said, well, here's a guy who's pro-gun, he's pro-self-defense. He never was pro-violent; it was just pro-self-defense.
To me, that's an interesting point coming from Massachusetts. It's interesting to talk to people that are non-gun folk. I classify people as three ways. We got the pro-gun people. We got the pro-gun people. We got the non-gun folk, and we got the anti-gun wackos.
Right.
And it seems like the anti-gun wackos, the people that are against having a gun, they assume we're all criminals.
Yeah.
They really do.
And that's why Malcolm, he always would say, hey, because we all know that gun control, kind of the original gun control was to stop slaves from owning guns.
Right.
And Malcolm knew that, and that's one of the reasons why he was, hey, embrace your Second Amendment right. It came across in a time where blacks were they didn't want blacks to own guns. So when he would, say, hey, by any means necessary, you protect yourself, it became a radical type of thing, because now it's like, well, wait a minute. This is the first time we've actually seen a leader express that, hey, I wanted take my arm, Second Amendment right, and embrace this right to defend myself against, you know, the Ku Klux Klan or whoever it may be.
Right.
And you know, he didn't shy away from saying, hey, if the police or law enforcement, who at that time a lot of them, you know, were behind the scenes Ku Klux Klan members, if they were going to abuse their rights, we would have to defend ourselves. So of course, when you hear that rhetoric, it's like, are you saying you're going to shoot police officers?
All of a sudden, you're chucked in, you're fighting the police.
You're fighting the police. So it was a very, very controversial time, and we can make a left up here too whenever.
Okay.
Yeah. It was a very controversial time. I think to understand, the reason why I chose to do this film was to bring light to certain situations and parts of Malcolm's life that no one really thought about. You know, his father was murdered by the Ku Klux Klan. His mother was clinically insane by the time that whole ordeal was over with. And
wow.
He was suffering from PTSD in modern day times, post-traumatic stress. All the stuff he's seen. His house was firebombed at a young age.
Wow. I should have done that.
He probably still loop around. But pretty much, you know, he was filled with all this hate. But at the end of his life, he released that hate and he embraced it. He embraced everyone, and that's when they murdered him. that's when they murdered him, because at that point he was like, we're getting ready to unite everyone. And he actually had shook hands of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And it was getting ready to be a very, very powerful uniting of all people. And I think personally that's what the government was really afraid of. And they said at this point we have to start taking away, and one by one you had Malcolm X murdered.
Yep.
Years later, Dr. King was murdered. So it was you know, it was a lot of lost history. A lot of people think that Martin Luther King as well, I'm going to do the next tribute of Dr. King, because a lot of people felt he was just such a pacifist, and hey, you can slap him and you won't, you know, get any bite out of him. But he actually had the deacons of defense who were armed after they firebombed his house and threatened his kids. He had them with weapons, and he was like, hey, I'm not gonna let you kill my kids, I'm not gonna let you kill me.
Right.
And they just totally disregarded that, you know.
Yeah.
And Jesus himself will protect himself. You know, Peter, you know, if you want to start looking in the Bible, there's so many spots where you can find self-defense. And Greg Hopkins, I got his book, and that's when I got it too. Yeah. So let's just be real about the whole thing. Let's not sit here and and it's not that people are trying to say, hey, you get a gun to go rob somebody. Right. You're getting a gun to protect against the people who are robbing people.
Who are robbing you.
You're robbing me. And robbing you and robbing whoever. I
tell people all the time, and I know some people have gotten freaked out about this when I teach classes. I say, listen, I carry 3 knives and a gun to the grocery store. And I say, I do it because I'm not a superhero. I said, I might wear tights, but I'm not a superhero.
I'm not a superhero.
And I don't owe it to you to protect your life. I owe it to my kids and me to protect myself. And the reason I want to protect me is because, and I know this to some people who don't think this way, when I say, listen, the most important person in my life is not my kids, even though I love them to death. The most important person in my life is me, because I'm the one that has to take care of my kids. Yeah. And if I'm not around to take care of my kids, then that's going to be on somebody else.
Yeah, that's true, because I have a daughter, and if I went to jail, or if, God forbid, if I had got hit with one of those bullets,
yeah,
what now? Who's going to take care of her?
Who's going to take care of your daughter? Yeah, absolutely.
So it's totally understandable. And you know, it was Black History Month. We're still in we were in the month of February, and I felt that why not do a tribute to someone, you know, of Malcolm's character. And I got some interesting feedback on it. It was like, you know, the first video was dropped, and we're gonna do another one. I just had to get everything organized and get the acting done, but it was a lot of people were interested. They were like, hey, you know, I want to learn more. I feel like I was miseducated on this individual.
Oh, absolutely. You did that for me, because I'm like, all right, what I know is, you know, I know the negative stuff, like you said. I know all the negative stuff about Malcolm X. I don't know all the other stuff. And so I'm like, you know what? I should probably check this out and not be judgmental about it, and say, all right, well, let's really check it out, you know?
Yeah.
Marcus is a great guy. He's a smart guy. He probably knows what he's talking about. Let's check this out a little bit more.
Yeah, and I got so many people inboxing me, and one guy actually said, he's like, I want to thank you, because I actually picked up his autobiography. I didn't know all this about Malcolm X. And I was like, wow. Yeah. I was like, no problem, you know. And I actually told one guy I was going to send him, because I have a copy of Malcolm's autobiography. I was going to send it to him. I said, just send me your address, I'll send it to you. So he hasn't gave me his address yet, but I was going to send it to him. But this is a guy, he met me, I believe we met at the gun rights convention in Tampa, I believe.
Oh, the gun rights policy conference?
Yeah, I believe so. But it was so many people I met. It was like I was just trying to remember. Gosh. I couldn't remember. But it was, you know, I got people on my Facebook that hit me up and, hey, you know, it's good meeting you. And I'm like, all right, let me Okay, let me remember.
Right.
You know, it's just not. I don't want to be rude or anything. I just don't remember everybody. But
yeah, absolutely. And
my arms are always open with love when you know.
My deal was this. I know Rick spoke, and he spoke at the Gun Rights Policy Conference. You were there.
Yeah.
And it was one of these things. Like I think Rick spoke on Sunday morning, and I was speaking later on Sunday morning, or I forget. I know he spoke before I did, and I was like, all right, I got to focus on what I need to say. I got to focus on my lines. I got 5 minutes to need to talk.
Right.
Ooh. I went up, and then I went up and spoke, and I was standing in the back of the room just like, it's done, it's over with. And you were standing next to me. You're like, hi, my name's Marcus.
Yeah.
I think I'd like to ride shotgun sometime. I'm like, okay. Here's my card, here's my number. I'm like, all right. And then let's just, we became friends on Facebook and all the social media stuff.
Yeah, it was cool, man. Well, we talked last time you were here, and I said about a cultural shock, and that's one thing I realized that changed my life. Everybody, if you grew up in the suburbs, you grew up in the rural area, you grew up in the urban area, you grew up in Detroit, you grew up in Texas, everybody's got a different perspective of life, okay? Yeah. We all have different backgrounds, but one thing about it, we're all human. This is a human race, and we're all American. So one thing I realized is, if I can build a kind of a platform to engage people in culture shocks that allow them to see whether it's the gun culture, whether it's the urban culture, and we can understand. Is one reason why I love Maj Toure, the Black Guns Matter movement, because he's going around, he's educating people on firearms in the urban area. They have no idea about the Second Amendment right that, like I said before, is not just a necessity but an entitlement.
Yeah.
So this is something that is new to them. Just like, if I go to Texas and I don't know anything about riding horses. So now it's like, boom, here it is. Okay, cool. And I may enjoy it. I may not. But one thing about it, I have that experience now.
Yeah.
We have the dialogue. We have to be able to talk to each other. It doesn't matter if you're Republican, Democrat, Independent. It's like, hey, we're all in this melting pot together. Everybody's American. We need to be able to start to talk and have the dialogue, honest conversation, and experience different things. And like right now, you're experiencing Detroit.
I am. I totally dig it, man. Okay, maybe not that building.
Not that building. Yeah, but this is new. I would love to come to Boston one day.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Never been to Boston. Would love to come and experience that. And that's what I'm all about, man. Experience new things, and not going off people's opinions and say, some people say, Detroit's horrible. Well, I'm going to see for myself if if it was me. That's how I think.
Yeah. I think I've had a great time here, man. This has been a lot of fun. I have, thinking of talking about believing what other people say. What I've done the last couple of years is I've been trying to break out of my shell and push my comfort zone with all the things that I'm doing. And that's, honestly, it's gotten me to the point where I have my own little biz where I teach gun classes on the weekends. I started making the gun gram videos where I play the trumpet and shoot a gun at the same time. And that all led to doing the riding shotgun with Charlie stuff too. And I never... in my previous life, but there was a time I would have never thought that I could call somebody that I never met, who has no idea who I am, and say, hey, listen, I'd like to get together and ride around a car and talk with you. And I actually, with the riding shotgun stuff, I called Ken Blanchard up. I sent him an email. I said, hey, man, I'm a big fan of the podcast. I listened to it when I was in the Urban Shooter, and now it's the Black Man with a Gun. And I've been a fan for a long time. I want to come down to DC and drive you around. Talk. He's like, all right, sounds cool, man.
Ken has actually been another mentor of mine, a big guy. I was blogging for his Black Man with a Gun.
Oh, cool.
And I did a couple blogs, and one of them was about my story, and the other one was about me being introduced into the gun culture. Mm-hmm. And one thing about Ken that I like in his book, Black Man with a Gun,
Reloaded. The second one.
Yeah,
I got them both.
Yep. Black Man with a Gun Reload, which he autographed. I got an autographed copy. Thanks, Ken. And
he is the man.
He is the man.
He really is, man.
He was the one, and that book was what introduced me into the racial roots of gun control. And,
totally, absolutely.
That was it. That's what tipped me off to everything, and I was like, whoa. And so, thanks, Ken, because I didn't know any of that at first.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, we talked about that when I interviewed him. We talked about that.
Yeah.
You'll have to check one of the previous episodes of Riding Shotgun with Charlie.
Yep. And I thank Ken and Rick Ector as well. So, the main thing, like I said, on actually my website, marcusweldon.com, I have the first Malcolm video up.
Cool.
And I shot it at my grandma's house because, like I told you, my grandfather.
Oh yeah, a little connection there.
A little connection there.
That's
my grandfather
awesome.
had all these old records of Elijah Muhammad and all this old stuff that he had stored away that he kept, even though he wasn't Muslim anymore. But he still had it for memorabilia. Mm-hmm. So I said, why not? Let's use this. Like, wait a minute. So
we got some props.
We got some props. So it was sweet, man. And I started looking at all these different videos and just educating myself on different things. And it was a process that, you know, was I didn't know half the stuff I know now about them, but you know, I really just was opened up and my mind just kind of started going all kind of places, and I started looking into Negroes with Guns, which was a book that came last year.
Ken talked about that. That's where he got the name from.
Yeah, right, exactly.
See, he stole it from somebody else.
Robert F. Williams. And Robert F. Williams was the first one of the first, I should say, black civil rights activists that embraced the Second Amendment right. So I started going on any activist that embraced the Second Amendment right. I started to really dig deep and do research on them. And then, you know, I started to branch out. Started to just dissect the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and I was just really off into it. And I seen it was kind of the checks and balances of the people that kept the government from going tyrannical. You know, we had the Second Amendment right. If we're going to have our First Amendment right, we need to fortify that with a Second Amendment right to keep you off our behinds if you decide to go rogue and have to. We got our militia, so you know the army can't attack us and do what they want to do if you decide you want to, you know, become tyrannical government. We got something for you, and so the people need to realize that this was the whole reason behind it in the beginning when the colonials broke away from the British. It was like, hey, we need to have something in place to stop you from taking advantage of it.
Exactly. The Constitution puts restrictions on the government and gives the people freedom. I remember reading a number of years ago, I read Barry Goldwater's Conscience of a Conservative.
Oh, wow, yeah. Okay.
And yeah, I didn't know much about Barry Goldwater except he, you know, everyone thought he was a crazy Republican. And I guess I knew that Johnson blew Goldwater's campaign out by having the picture of the little girl holding a flower and an atomic bomb going off behind her.
Wow.
But what I liked about the Conscience of a Conservative is there was this one phrase that I remember. It's maximum individual freedom. And I'm like, maximum individual freedom. I think that's what I want.
Yeah.
You know, and I really do.
We can make a laugh here.
Right. Maximum individual freedom. I want to do what I want to do. You want to do what you want to do. I don't want to stop. I remember this from, I used to be a gigging musician for a long time. And just as I was starting to get into gun stuff, I was talking to some of the musicians that I played in a band with, and I was like, you know what? I want to get to the point where I carry like one of those little snub 38 things. That'd be kind of cool, you know? And they're like, man. Okay. And he's like, you know what? Guns are bad. Guns are dangerous. You can kill somebody with a gun. And I remember sitting with him in a nightclub saying, you know what? You like to smoke pot, don't you? He's like, yeah. I don't mind going home from a gig and having a toke and getting some sleep. And I said, here's the deal, man. I'm not into that. That's not for me. I don't want you pushing that on my kids. But I'm not going to stop you from wanting to do that. You want to do it, knock yourself out, smoke enough pot, join the Grateful Dead. I don't care, man. I don't want to do that. It's not for me. And I'm not going to tell you not to do it. Right. I want to own a gun. You don't think I should do it. You're going to stop me from doing it. And that's a bunch of bull.
That's a bunch of bull.
You know?
And then I didn't, my family, as far as the household, my mom and dad, I didn't have too much pushback because my father had this concealed carry permit. He was in the military. So guns were just kind of in the bloodline. But on my other side, like, you know, my grandma and my cousins and aunts, when they found out about my case, they were shocked I even had a gun. They were like, I didn't know he was carrying a gun. So, you know, they still embraced me. They no love lost. But anytime you use your firearm, it's going to be that stereotypical outlook of being a guy of the villain, or being someone who's just, you know, out here.
Yeah, absolutely. Because a lot of people don't get that. First of all, that shooting's fun. It's a great time. I'm in it for fun. You know, you talk to some guys who are defensive guys, tactical guys. I tell people when I teach gun classes, I say, here's my deal. I say I'm the least threatening but the most offensive. That's what I like to say.
I like that. I may have to steal that quote.
All right.
I'll make sure I say Charlie's quote.
No, I mean, this is what I do. You know, when people talk about a double feed, you know, the high-end guys call it a linear malfunction. I call it a Mexican standoff.
Mexican standoff.
Well, neither guy's moving. One cartridge isn't coming out, the other one's not going in. It's a Mexican standoff. Nobody's moving.
Right.
So when I talk to people, I lost my track. I totally lost my track. When I talk to people about gun stuff, you turn them onto it. I forgot what I was talking about. I hate that.
You know what?
I told people I was ADD before ADD was cool.
I got a little bit of it too, man. I think I'm I got a little bit of PTSD as well, because sometimes I get the seeing stuff and it reminds me of things. I get that twitching and acting crazy. I was like, man, what is going on? But it took me a while before I was able to go back in the shooting range.
Oh, I could imagine.
I didn't shoot. Yeah. I forgot to talk about that. I did not shoot another firearm until my case was over in June. It took 18 months, but I didn't shoot another firearm until 3 months after the case was over with. So
I believe it.
Almost over a year.
It's
over a year.
It's well, it is, like I said, it is fun. I'm kind of coming back to what I was thinking. It is fun to do. People enjoy it. It's empowering for people. Mm-hmm. You know, for someone who's been in a bad relationship with domestic violence or something. Yeah. It's empowering to feel that you have that, and it's certainly something that has to be taken very seriously. I've taken some classes with one instructor, and I'm an NRA instructor. That's, you know, I don't have, I'd say the mind is the weapon, everything else is a tool. Right. You know, you can take a pen and stab it in someone's eye. So yeah. It's the mind is the weapon, and sometimes he calls guns death tools. He's like, all right, you got your death tool. And yes, you can do that, but you know, we're driving in a death tool also, and it depends on how it depends on how you handle it and who's handling it.
And there's a certain line of maturity that comes with a firearm. Like, you can't be a guy who's hot-headed and think you're going to get a gun, and it's not the first option. Conflict resolution, in my opinion, is the first option. If I can say, hey, if there's a situation that's starting to escalate, if I can de-escalate it, great. But if not, then hey, second option is I'm going to have to use my firearm if it gets to the point where my life is threatened. Right. But, you know, people, I think what happens is, especially coming from the city of Detroit, a lot of people, I think they get their firearm and they feel like, okay, now I am invincible and I think I can go to certain areas and I don't have to worry. Mm-hmm. Don't take that mindset where you need to go and I'm going to go to a gas station late at night. Some people may feel like, you know, I had a question. They said, if you didn't have your firearm, well, you went and helped that young lady. I felt like I still would have helped her, you know, but, you know, maybe my gun did make it a little bit more comfortable. I don't know. But in the same line, chivalry is not dead. So you're going to do good things to help people.
Sure, it's not like she was a total stranger. She was someone you worked with. Yeah,
I worked with, right.
All right, so you see one of your colleagues, somebody you know, whatever. You see somebody you work with and need some help, and listen, well, let's go give her a hand. Yeah, give her a hand. It's late at night. Whatever. It's not it certainly doesn't make you invincible. I've noticed it makes me pay attention to my surroundings more than I used to pay attention to.
Good point. And it helped me also, because I used to be a guy, you know, I was never a heavy drinker, but, you know, I would go to the bar, have a drink. Mm-hmm. But because of my firearm, I would stop drinking as much. I wouldn't, like, nights out, you know, I was like, hey, I can't drink, I got my firearm. Mm-hmm. Hey, I can't go out tonight, I got my firearm. Now, if I'm in a home environment, like sitting in a basement, we can pull the Heinekens out, we can go at it. Yeah. You know, the gun's in the closet, whatever, we're good.
What I tell people is, if I have a gun on me and I'm eating a meal, I'll have, if I want to have an adult beverage, I have a small light beer. Yeah. But if I'm going to have 7 Jack and Cokes, then I leave the gun in the car and I just take the knives.
Just take the knives. Knives are, And knives actually, you know, are more fun in some ways. You know, one thing about a knife, you know, it's small, concise. You don't have to worry about, you know, and if you know how to work it, you're good.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess my attitude with the way things work for me is you get a gun license, you start hanging out with gun guys. Yeah. Then the gun guys say, all right, so you got a knife? Yeah. So, all right, then I have to go get a knife. Then 3 months later, they're like, all right, you got your gun? Yep, here's my gun. You got your knife? Yep, here's my knife. Where's the second knife? You're like, ugh.
Yeah. And it's funny, man, because I'm experiencing all these new different ways of thinking. And I would start, like, I had a guy approach me and said, you got to go to this, it was a knife training course he had invited me to. And I just like, okay, how to use a blade. Yeah. And I'm going to take my first class actually next month, because he's been on me. He's been like, hey, man, listen, I'll even pay for your first class. Come on. I'm like, all right. You know, I'm not going to turn nothing free down, so here I come. Right. But that should be a good experience. I'll definitely have to Facebook it.
Cool, man. I can't wait. The knife class that I took, The instructor, his name is Michael de Betancourt, and he's from snubtraining.com, and he's an absolute maniac. He calls it, his technique is called the lift and separate.
Lift and separate.
Yes, he says you take the knife, you put it between the guy's legs, and you lift and separate his testicles.
Oh, wow.
And then he says this, if you go from anus to scrotum or scrotum to anus, it really doesn't make a difference.
It really doesn't make yeah. Well, you know, and I think it takes even more courage to use a blade than a firearm.
It does, because you've got to get close to
You got to get close. You got to feel it going into the flesh. I mean,
yeah.
You can probably make a right here.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. You don't want to get to the point where you use a knife. And I've got another friend that says the winner in a gunfight, the winner in a knife fight goes to the hospital.
That's the truth. That's pretty. Yeah. You're right, because you're both going to have some damage.
Yeah.
Somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of carnage. You know, a lot of carnage.
Yeah.
But you know, it takes a lot to use a knife. It definitely does. And you know, I think. Look, I got one of your. I lost my train of thought now.
That's all right, man.
It's all good.
ADD before ADD was cool.
Yeah. Oh, that's what I was gonna say. Options. That's all it's about, having options.
Oh yeah.
You know, do I want to use? Is the opportunity presents itself where I can get away with just using hand-to-hand combat?
Yep.
You know, but hey, sometimes hand-to-hand combat escalates to something else.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like in my situation, it started off as a physical hand-to-hand confrontation, but then it escalated to something else. It became firearms, and you have multiple guys. That's why you never know. You know, you have multiple people. You don't know who's got what. Right,
and this is I tell people this in class too, because in Massachusetts we can't have post 94 post-ban high cap magazines. I say, listen, here's why you want to get a Glock and get a pre-ban magazine, because bad guys have friends.
Bad guys have friends.
You know?
Yeah, I learned that the hard way.
Yeah.
And you know, and another thing about it, it was a situation I heard where a buddy of mine, he had gotten in a confrontation with a guy, and after he got, you know, he's fighting a guy, he's focused on this one individual, and he's beating the mess out of him. Actually, he's winning the fight, and his buddy comes across and cracks him over the head with a crowbar or some sort. 17 stitches.
Wow.
He's laid out unconscious, and he's a good fighter. He's a boxer, and he told me, he said, let me tell you, at that moment, you know, I realized, like, it doesn't necessarily matter how good your hands is. If you got, you know, you got a buddy around, man, he was like, stuff can get real crazy. Right. He was always thinking, so he ended up getting his concealed carry permit, and you know, he was like, hey man, I never again. He still has the mark on his head.
My gosh.
You could probably make a right here. And it was at a McDonald's. Like, it was at a McDonald's.
McDonald's will kill you, man.
Yeah. So he was like, yeah, McDonald's will kill you. And he was like, he got cracked right over the head, and everything went blank, and all that physical, you know, hey, I'm the man, that went out the window real quick.
Out the window. Yeah, when somebody comes up behind you, this is why I call it the mafia seats. When you go to the restaurants, you take the mafia seats.
Yeah.
You're back against the wall, so you can see the door.
Yep, back against the wall, so you can see the door. And probably make a right at the next street.
All right. Well, listen, Marcus, this has been a lot of fun, man. This has been an honor for me to come up here to your area and your hometown, and to drive you around and talk to you about your situation and get to know you better. I've heard you on some of the other podcasts that I listen to, Cheryl Todd's and Mark Walters and stuff. I
love Cheryl Todd.
And, you know, I knew I got your name. I saw a little bit about what your story was, and then hearing you on their shows got to help me learn more about you, and this has been great, man.
Yeah,
dude, I gotta tell you, I love these old buildings, these old brick houses.
Yeah.
It really feels like a throwback to like the 1950s or something, you know?
Yeah, this is what I've been used to my whole entire life. So it's like, you know, when people come out and they say, man, these houses are gorgeous, I'm like, oh yeah? It's kind of like what I've been used to. I guess they are gorgeous.
Yeah,
I never looked at it like that.
Sure.
Yeah, right.
Sure. You think it's gorgeous, it's home for me.
It's home. But you know, Detroit is a very you know, it's a diverse area now, man. We're kind of becoming more of a mixing melting pot as well. Downtown, I see all kind of you know, people from all over come downtown, man. And this is like, at one point it was like a chocolate city, as they call it. Then all of a sudden now it's like we got vanilla, we got all kind of different sherbets now, and it's like, you know,
we got a twist going on.
We got a twist going on, which is great. I mean, because you got the Canadian border.
Yeah.
You know, I went down and we have Midtown, the Corktown, and they got different Chinatown. So it's like all these different cultures all mixing together. And it wasn't, you know, it was like that in the beginning, but then it kind of went straight and went downhill, and then now it's coming back. So we got Dan Gilbert. He's doing a lot of big investments, and that's why downtown is starting to really thrive. We got a great mayor. So everything's looking on the up and up. So hopefully, you know, it continues on that path.
I hope so, man. Marcus, man, it has been a pleasure. And it's been a pleasure getting to know you and hang out in Detroit and drive you around. And I appreciate you very much for riding shotgun with Charlie.
Hey, I've been looking forward to it since we met in Tampa. So
me too, man.
Great.
I'm glad we can pull this off.
Yeah, definitely.
Anything you want to plug?
Well, back my website, marcusweldon.com. My Facebook, Marcus Allen Weldon. I had to put my middle name in there because every time people Google Marcus Weldon, this other guy comes up. I'm like, who's this guy? Oh, he's some rich guy. Oh,
for guys my age, that's Marcus Welby.
Yeah, Welby. So, you know, everything was cool, but you know, I love my book, also The Santa Shooter, Guilty Until Proven Innocent, is coming out soon. Like I said, working last time we talked, working with a publisher, so we're almost finalizing the deal. So I'm excited. And yeah, just looking forward to.
I think it's cool you're asking for some feedback on the cover.
Oh yeah. I had a both. You know, one thing about it, the theme, of course, is the Santa Shooter. So you know, you got multiple Christmas type of, and you know, had to add my gun in there. Had to add a couple of, you know, the teddy bear kind of represents my life with my daughter. So I had all kind of, you know, different photographs and striking images that strike different parts of the story, because it's not just about the Santa Shooter, it's also about Marcus Weldon.
Yeah, absolutely. And how's this gonna affect your daughter? How's it gonna affect the rest of your life? Your parents had a big involvement in that and everything too.
Yeah. And I think when people read it, they're gonna be shocked at some of the things that happen that, you know, I don't want to disclose, I don't want to blow the whole thing.
You gotta buy the book.
You gotta buy the book, but I'm telling you, man, the next video I'm doing on it's gonna be a reenactment of the shooting.
Really? Oh, man.
First, you heard it first here on Shotgun with Charlie. So,
I gotta get this video out.
Yeah. So I'm telling you, man, that's gonna be sweet.
I can't wait, man.
With the Santa suit and all. So.
Oh my gosh. All right, cool. Well, listen, you guys, we had a great time here with Marcus, and we will talk to you guys later. Thanks a lot.
All right.
Cool, man.
Cool. All right.